My fitness journey has been pretty crazy. I've actually been doing like fitness, if we consider like gym-based fitness, for the last 8 years, and I would do so many things differently if I could start again. I've done CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, triathlon. I'm now doing hybrid training. My body size has fluctuated all over the place. I've dieted, I've restricted, I've done lots of different things that have had big impacts on my relationship with food, my relationship with exercise, and I want to help you out so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did. Number one, I would focus on performance, longevity, health, and like training for that old lady body instead of focusing on appearance and aesthetics. When I came into CrossFit and training in the gym, I was super focused on aesthetics and I just wanted to be thinner. I existed in a larger body and my lifestyle was not healthy in any way, shape or form, and I started losing weight just because I started working out, and then I got obsessed with how my body looked, and I was constantly taking progress photos even when I was skinny, and I got to the point where I was just trying to lose all of the body fat because I believed in the whole like fitness in 100 words that CrossFit touts. Don't eat any sugar and eat in quantities that don't support body fat, because I didn't believe that women or anybody needed body fat. I literally believed exactly what it said and had no idea that it isn't actually possible or healthy to have no body fat at all. I was obsessed with trying to get lean enough so that you could see my abs, and every single time I started massively hyperfixating on appearance, my performance started to decrease and I started to get worse at CrossFit, and it was just not good for me. I wish like right from the start I just focused on performance goals and just training for longevity, so that health was my main focus and performance was my main focus, and I could just enjoy and appreciate the training for what it did for me rather than trying to shrink myself. And training for performance isn't necessarily the best thing you can do, because number two is that I would have not tried to be the absolute best at CrossFit that I could have ever been. I was at the point where I could do muscle ups, I was competing in competitions, I could lift really heavy weights, I can still lift pretty heavy weights, and I was just obsessed with being the best that I could possibly be. I would train double days, I would train like 6 days a week. My whole life was CrossFit, and I stopped attending like things that would be fun outside of CrossFit. I stopped eating foods that I considered were banned. I'd literally traded off like half of the things that I enjoyed doing in my life because I was so obsessed with just getting better at CrossFit. And I wasn't even that good. It's not like I was an elite athlete. I was like relatively okay. Like I podiumed a lot of competitions. I won a fair amount of competitions. I did really well locally, but like nationally, I was never that good. I was never going to the CrossFit Games, but I was still training like I was going to end up at the CrossFit Games. I was still beating myself into the ground, punishing myself, pushing myself as hard as I possibly could to try and get better, and obsessing over these tiny things that I was bad at, and then berating myself because I wasn't improving. And it just made me miserable and it was not good for me in any way. And I really wish that I'd just not done that. The reason I got into CrossFit in the first place was to just feel like fitter and healthier and to enjoy my training. And because I was pulled in with the idea that CrossFit should be something that helps you play new sports and like do stuff outside of the gym. But I stopped doing anything outside of the gym because I was so obsessed with getting better at CrossFit. Number three, I would get clear at the beginning specifically what kind of fitness that I wanted. I wish I knew from the start that CrossFit was short time domain and that the average workout length is only like 10 to 15 minutes. For years and years, I've had this weird thing where I've wanted to get more like cardiovascular fit, but I've not really realized that CrossFit wasn't getting me there. And I'm like, why am I still getting stronger even though strength isn't my goal and I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can in the cardio bit, but I just don't really seem to be getting fitter. Like I feel like I've plateaued. Nap trapped Beth here, literally sitting in the dark editing. Ward Science did a really good video on this week. It came out this week, and it basically shows that you do plateau eventually if you just constantly do high intensity training. So I reckon that is what happened to me. Go watch the video. It's backed up by studies. Absolutely amazing videos from him. Yeah, I think that is what happened to me. And then like I did a triathlon and I did some like road cycling and I really enjoyed that, but the pull of CrossFit was so hard that I felt like I wasn't doing enough CrossFit and went back into doing CrossFit. At that point I should have realised that I had this goal of just being more like cardiovascular fit, but I wasn't clear on it, and I just kind of gone with this idea that CrossFit is the best way to get you fit in general life, everything. CrossFit is great for getting everyday people that are not currently training to like a level of fitness. It's fantastic for that. It's scalable for all abilities. It's brilliant. But it's very hard to train for specific goals, even if that specific goal is just better steady state, long duration, like cardiovascular fitness. It's hard to train for that in a CrossFit class. And if I had realised what my goals were back then I could have saved myself some time and just actually trained for the goals. Although I wouldn't trade the fact that I have done CrossFit, because I do love CrossFit and I am obsessed with it. And I think I will always feel that pull to be in a CrossFit class around other people and working out. It is infectious. But I think getting clear on what my goals were and realising that CrossFit wasn't necessarily going to get me there would have made me feel less guilty about doing other sports and other kinds of fitness outside of classes. Number 4, I would have never dieted. I completely regret my journey where I lost over 100 pounds. I regret dieting and strictly following CrossFit's nutrition guidelines that said, it's like on this fitness in 100 words thing, but it says no sugar. Back again, I need to explain this because I keep not explaining it, but the reason I have such a problem with the no sugar thing is because I basically took that to like the extreme. So sugar is in everything. Sugar is in fruit, so I stopped eating fruit. Like I didn't eat stuff like honey or maple syrup. I didn't eat stuff like bread that has naturally occurring sugars, or ooh, she's waking. I stopped eating a lot of things that contain sugar, both naturally and like things that are like normal foods that have just like added sugar in them. I just stopped all of it, and that was really problematic. So like 90% of foods I basically couldn't eat. Like imagine going to a restaurant or something would be completely impossible because everything has sugar added in it. Pasta sauce or tomato sauce that goes on like a chicken, like chicken parmesan. Tomatoes are like sour, so you have to add like sugar to make it slightly sweeter. Like there's sugar in everything. So the whole no sugar thing was, it just basically stopped me from eating like most foods. And I did a similar thing with carbs. Like basically when I went low carb, I stopped eating things like even like chicken breast. I was like, oh my god, that's got a certain amount of grams of carbs in it. Yeah, there's loads of stuff. If you really hyper focus on the macros, there's loads of stuff you can't eat. So it was really bad for me. They also love like the zone and like the paleo kind of way of eating, and I went into like the paleo diet for a while, and that only exacerbated my eating disorder. I cut out carbs for a long time because of that kind of paleo mindset, and again that made my eating disorder worse. It worsened my recovery, it worsened my performance, because carbs are a really efficient energy source, and I know that now because I have multiple nutrition qualifications, and I realised that CrossFit's nutrition advice is absolute bullshit. But following it only made me sick, only made me relapse, and it only decreased my performance and made me worse at CrossFit, which is funny. And I honestly think if I'd never dieted in the first place and I just focus on like adding in more healthy foods, more nutrient dense foods, more vegetables, more like nuts and seeds and beans and pulses, more whole foods into my diet, if I just followed like what the actual like nutrition guidance is from something like the NHS with the Eat Well plate, and I just looked at that and just tried to eat a little bit better, but like never dieted, never put myself in a calorie deficit, I feel like my relationship with food would be much better than it has been. And I've gone through the last couple of years trying to repair my relationship with food, and now I'm at a place where I'm like really recovered and I'm doing really well, and I'm no longer sick with my eating disorder. But even though I lost that 100 pounds, I feel like if I hadn't have done that and I just ate better, I probably would have lost weight anyway. Not that that should massively matter, because you can chase health goals without intentionally losing weight. You might lose weight in the process accidentally, but I just really wish I hadn't bothered with the calorie counting, the calorie restriction, the macro counting, logging everything into my fitness pal, because I would have so much less to undo. And I've had to work so hard to overcome. Like everything that I did during my fitness journey that made everything so much worse. Whereas if I just not dieted in the first place, maybe I'd be fine and I had nothing to undo. I mean, I did have an eating disorder before. I've had one since I was 13, but I feel like if I'd kind of chased like intuitive eating when I started CrossFit and I just started to eat intuitively for my training, then that also might have helped in my recovery. And I wasn't massively sick with my eating disorder when I started CrossFit. I was just not particularly healthy, but literally I've made my eating disorder 10 times worse in the last probably 6 years of my fitness journey. I made my eating disorder way worse, and the last 2 years I've been trying to undo it, and I could have saved myself all of that. And number 5, I would have got eating disorder recovery support much sooner than I have done. And I think part of it was because I was massively dismissed because I was never at a weight that was low enough for people to be concerned. My eating disorder was bulimia, and it wasn't seen as that problematic, to be honest, which is completely crazy. Even though I literally told like multiple psychiatrists because I had bipolar disorder and I was assessed multiple times because I got diagnosed, and I mentioned it and they were like, oh yeah, like sometimes that happens to people with bipolar disorder. Like, no, it doesn't. That's not a thing. And it still should be treated. I still should have been referred. Like, it's not okay. I should have done that sooner. I should have learned what actual health is by just adding in like healthier foods into my diet and just eating generally better and just training for health. I wish I'd done like more work on body acceptance and realizing that my body is okay exactly as it is and I can accept my body and that I don't need to be trying to shrink it. My body will adapt to my life and the sports that I do, and that is okay, and it's not an ornament. I shouldn't have to like bend my body into the current body trend, whatever that is, because we've literally gone from like the Kardashians like BBL trend to like now we're back into like skinny is on trend again, and that's all happened during the time where I've been on my fitness journey. Body trends change all the time, and I think a lot of us could do with like a method to stop us from fixating on trying to change our body. If I had done all of that, I feel like I would be in a much better place than I had been, and over the last couple of years I wouldn't have to have massively undo all of these unhealthy habits that I developed. If you want to know the full truth about my fitness journey and what actually happened, then watch this video next. I go into much more detail. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.